Welcome to the arena. My name is Greg Sindelar, and I have the privilege of being here live in Oklahoma City today with the 28th Governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt. Governor Stitt, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, man. Good to see you.
I appreciate coming to Oklahoma. It's much cooler here than it is in Texas, so it's been nice wearing long sleeves for a change and not sweating. Well, Governor, I wanted to start off, maybe learn a little bit about you and then get into some of the issues facing Oklahoma. So let's start with your background. You're born in Florida. Your mom comes from Cherokee heritage. You come to Oklahoma. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and what it was like growing up in Oklahoma.
Yeah, so mom and dad met at Oklahoma State and got married after their freshman year, and then went to Bible college down in Pensacola, Florida. Mm-hmm. And so I was born down in Milton, Florida, down there in the Panhandle, and then dad pastored a few churches, and came back, graduated from Oklahoma State, pastored a few churches down south, but raised here in Oklahoma since I was about 4. And great childhood. Dad was a pastor. Mom stayed at home, and I've got 2 brothers, and went to public schools. Graduated from Norman High School. Played football, and just had an idyllic childhood, and great parents that instilled in me the values and of faith and loving our country and our community. And I was an entrepreneur, and so just had a great childhood. And then went to Oklahoma State for college and started my business.
So what was it like growing up in Norman, but then going to Oklahoma State? Obviously, you said your parents went there, but...
Yeah. So obviously, the big rivalry in Oklahoma is the Sooners or the Cowboys, right?
Yep, that's right.
And
Bedlam.
And grew up a Sooner fan. Went to all the games. We had season tickets, and so huge OU fan. So all of our high school, kids, their dads, some of them were coaches at the University of Oklahoma. So knew Switzer's kids and all that. And so that was really fun. I was connected, but really for me, I wanted to get away from home. Just moving across town to go to college didn't sound very fun, and so I wanted to go to Stillwater. Then mom and dad had went to Oklahoma State, and so Stillwater's about an hour and a half from Norman, and had a great experience. Loved it, and made lifelong friends. And college is just a great time for young people to really assimilate, to learn what's out there, what's possible, and you meet other people from other walks of life, and just a great time. So I had a great time in Stillwater.
That's
got
fantastic.
An accounting degree, and didn't want to be an accountant necessarily, but thought it was the best business degree to get. And I wanted to have my own business, and so I wanted to get as much accounting as I could. So I got an accounting degree, and then moved to Tulsa after that.
Well, I understand that. I have a finance degree, and that's because I didn't want to do as much math as accounting degrees needed. But as an Aggie, I'll tell you, I spent time in Norman and Stillwater. Stillwater's more fun town. So
Stillwater's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Stillwater's pretty fun. We've got Eskimo Joe's,
Yep.
which is our famous kind of bar hamburger joint, and then the Tumbleweeds is the famous two-stepping place, and we've got obviously Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
He was a few years ahead of me, but he's played right there on the Strip in Stillwater, and so yeah, just a great time. We obviously you're very fond of your alma mater and where you went to school, and love going back and watching the Cowboys play different sports.
Yeah. Well, and T. Boone Pickens is a great Texan, but obviously Oklahoma State Cowboy. Although I will say he was an Aggie first.
Well, yeah, but he was born and raised in Holdenville, Oklahoma.
True.
So he's
true.
in Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and he just went and struck oil down in Texas.
We
And then brought
adopt
it back.
everyone. Once you come to Texas, well, you're one of ours.
Yeah, we love Boone's. Boone's awesome. Got a chance to get to know him a little bit before he passed away, and great Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Great ambassador for our state.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so as you mentioned, you became an entrepreneur. You started a very successful company. So what I'm always interested in talking to businessmen and women that get into politics is why leave that world behind and get involved in this world? I think it's a really interesting story. Love to hear what got you into the arena, per se.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, I started my company with $1,000 in a computer shortly after I graduated from college, and my wife and I have been married for 26 years, and so we were newly married and started a mortgage company, and then grew that, and then we ended up buying a bank and grew it to over 1,000 employees, and we bought loans from banks and credit unions and serviced loans all over the country, and so great American dream story. And then I just really started looking at how my state was being run, and just kind of the career politicians, and we were really struggling back in 2018. We were having budget deficits and teacher walkouts. We weren't paying our teachers kind of market rates. And I looked at who was running, and it just seemed like more of the same. Nothing was going to change because it was the same career politicians running. And I think President Trump inspired me. He had just won in 16. And, you know, and then I started thinking, well, you know, if not me, then who? And our founding fathers never thought that politics was going to be like a profession or a career and you climb the ladder. They thought you would be a successful rancher or farmer or teacher or business person, and you would leave that to go serve your state or your country, and then you come back to the private sector. So I was like, well, I mean, I'm super scared. I didn't know anything about politics. I'd never ran for office, but I just felt this calling and this need that if not now, if not me, then who was going to do it? And so, man, I just put it on the line. I took off from my company. I went and worked my tail off and put a great team together. And it's no different than starting a business or doing anything. Once you make that mental decision to do it, then you put the right team around you, and then you go work your tail off, and anything's possible in America. And we proved that. It's just been amazing ride for the last 6 years.
That's amazing. And I think that you're right. What people are looking for are public servants, not politicians, right? And that
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And then that's the freedom that we have to make the right decision. And I told Oklahomans, listen, I'm always going to make the right decision for the next generation, never for the next election, because I don't need the job. I'm going back to the private sector, and so that's what people want in their leaders. And I said, if I make the right decisions, they can see that, and they'll beg you to run for reelection because they know you're making the right decision for them and the future of our state, not what's politically expedient or what's going to benefit you as a politician. And that's why people hate politicians, because they can see right through them. They're phony. They're making decisions that aren't the best for the state or the country. It's only what's best for them.
Yeah. Constituents really respond to courage, right, and doing the right thing for the right reasons. I think you're 100% right. Well, getting into some of the things that you've seen in your time as governor, I think the number one issue that we hear, there's two issues, and we'll get into both of them, border security being one of them, but I want to start with the economy. Texas has done well. That's where I live on dealing with the economy and what's happening there. How has Oklahoma fared, and how have you navigated the troubled waters that we've seen come from the Biden administration?
Yeah, Oklahoma, it's just been an amazing ride over the last 6 years. I took over with no money in savings. Now we have the largest savings account we've ever had, $5 billion. I've been able to cut taxes. We're top 10 in people moving to Oklahoma, not per capita. We're 4 million people. We're the 28th largest state population-wise, but we're top 10 in people moving here because of our policies, our pro-business policies. So it's just been an amazing economy since I've been governor, and with the savings, with the tax cuts, with deregulation. That's what businesses want. Businesses just want, and that's what the American dream is about. Let's get government out of the way, let businesses go compete against each other and innovate, and that's the free market system that works so well. And unfortunately, when you've got the Biden-Harris administration that just think more government regulation, all they've done, if you look at who's running for president right now, all they are is politicians. All they've done is work in government. So to them, the solution is government. When we know that the solution is the private sector. Ronald Reagan used to say, government is not the solution, government is the problem. And I totally agree with that. And that's best for the middle class. What people don't realize is when you get the economy booming and you have deregulation, you get government out of the way, the middle class thrive. It's actually government intervention and democratic policies that crush the middle class. And the rich get richer and the poor get poorer under Democrat, more government regulations. And so people don't really understand it, but it's the Republican Party. It's deregulation that's actually helping the middle class and helping the economy grow by getting government out of the way.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I always tell people my simplified view of what conservatism means is who decides. Are they deciding or am I deciding? And I want as many of those decisions as possible, and that's ultimately 100%. What we're trying to get at. Speaking of, something that really leads to human flourishing is having access to affordable and reliable energy, right? Your economy can't grow and can't do all the things that we need it to do if you don't have reliable, affordable energy. And so Oklahoma has been an energy independent state. You guys produce more energy than you use. Can you talk to me about what policies you put in place to ensure that Oklahoma continues to kind of lead on affordable and reliable energy?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. When you think about energy, and I've met with probably 60 different ambassadors, and every time I go to DC, I treat it as like a trade mission. But what shocked me coming into this role is every other country, all they want to talk about is energy. Energy is so crucial for all these other countries. And then when you see the disruption, like the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and you see the disruption of natural gas and oil, these countries aren't blessed like we are in the U.S., and they don't have natural resources. So they have to get that from somewhere else, right? And so when we have policies here in the U.S. that are banning, for example, the Biden administration banned LNG exports.
Yep.
Okay, which that harms our allies in Europe and Asia, and it drives them into the arms of our adversaries, really, right? It enriches Iran. Totally counterproductive. And the American people, that's why they're so frustrated, just not letting the free enterprise work. So back home domestically, everybody knows that we've got to drive our kids to piano lessons and soccer practice, right?
Yep.
We've got to heat our homes, our businesses. And so for them to put their thumb on the scale, again, more government regulation and tell you what stove you can use and what car you can drive, and you can't generate electricity from this source or that source. What happens to pricing?
Yep.
Pricing goes up, right? When you choke off that supply, pricing is going to go up because demand is there.
Yep.
The American people, the last time I checked, my wife's taking our kids to soccer practice today and piano lessons, and I've got my air conditioner on, and we're heating and cooling this building.
Yeah.
So demand is there. That's what makes no sense with the Democratic policies, right? So that is inflation. That is why things cost more at the grocery store. It's because of these policies. That's why we have to go back to a free market system. So Oklahoma does that better than anybody. And to let you know, Oklahoma is number 6 in oil production, number 5 in natural gas production. We're also number 3 in electricity generated by wind.
Oh, wow.
Most people don't believe that about Oklahoma, is that we're one of only 4 states that over 45% of our energy comes from renewables. And we're proud of that, like an all of the above approach. We're so much better than a lot of the blue states. We actually live the walk here. Google has their largest data center located in Oklahoma because of our reliable, affordable power. And when you mix that up and you're an all of the above approach, and you're not opposed to wind, but you obviously have natural gas and you've got oil, then that creates this great economy and a reliable, affordable grid that every state wants. And every business and manufacturing is looking at states like Oklahoma and Texas because of our power grid and because we're not afraid to have new generation come online. And they're leaving states like California, not just because of the regulation and the high taxes, but they're afraid they can't get good power because they keep decommissioning some of their power plants. So again, pretty common sense to us, and I think most Americans, unless you're just a wacko on the far left and you believe these policies that you can all of a sudden turn off natural gas generation and still heat and cool your home. So we love electric vehicles. We've got more charging stations per capita than any other state. But when you plug that electric vehicle in, or your cell phone, where does that come from?
Yeah, that's right.
And in most cases, it's natural gas.
Yeah.
And that's why we love natural gas, and wind is a good supplement. We're doing a lot of solar as a supplement, but you have to have a base load for a reliable, affordable grid. And again, it's just common sense to most Americans, and the elites in Washington, D.C. Think Americans are stupid, like we don't understand basic economics. And that's why we just need to talk about policies when we're explaining this, when we've got this election coming up in November. It's a clear choice between what policies you want. Get personalities out of the way and 30-second commercials. Just look at the policies of the two candidates, and it's a pretty easy choice. What's going to be better for the economy? What's going to be better for a reliable, affordable grid and prices at the grocery store?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Now, the problem is one of the candidates isn't always articulating their policies, but I think we've seen the last 4 years what those policies will look like. And you're 100% right. Like, if you don't have that reliability factor, then you can't count on it, right? And that really creates some instability that makes economic growth almost impossible. And that's one of the things that Oklahoma's done well, and Texas as well. But another important part of the economic future of Oklahoma and really any state is education. And so one of the things that Oklahoma is outpacing Texas currently on is school choice and educational opportunity and educational freedom. And so I want to read a quote from you that I thought was so good. And you said, "The demand for school choice is abundantly clear and overwhelming. It's amazing to see parents in the driver's seat and see students in a school that fits them." And your program kind of hit the cap almost immediately after it went into effect. What do you see as kind of the next step for this in Oklahoma? And you maybe comment a little bit about what you're seeing around the country as this kind of spreads like wildfire.
Yeah, well, first off, just so your viewers know, we basically injected school choice or more options for every family in Oklahoma. So we believe in that free market competition.
Yep.
We've got a lot of great public schools. And just so you know, I've put more money in public education since I've been governor than they did for like 30 years before I got here. So we're going to continue to do that because I can't think of anything better to be known for than basically I want to be the education governor and want to make sure that next generation has an opportunity and knows what's possible and they're ready for the workforce, right? Yep. So we can talk about that. But really what happened, and I tell people this, rich people already have school choice.
Yep.
They can put their kids anywhere. They move to Highlands Park in Dallas because of the school system and they pay high taxes on the property taxes, so they get in that school district. Or if your kid is getting into hanging out with the wrong crowd or getting into drugs, you're going to pull your kid and put them in a different school, different environment. So what we did was, it really hit home during COVID. We had one school district that shut down for a long time, and so the parents would call me and would go, "Governor, what am I supposed to do? My kid is not learning how to read on Zoom, and my neighbors, their kids are in school, and I just felt terrible." And they go, "We can't afford to go to a private school." And so now with this bill that we passed, every family has a $7,500 refundable tax credit. And even if you make $1 million a year, you have $5,000, so it stair steps down to go to a school of their choice. And so what that does is that creates more options for that family, that not every kid learns the same way. And if you're in a failing school district, now you have options. So the idea next is we're going to remove the cap. The legislature put a cap on it. We'll remove that. But also just encouraging more charter schools, more schools to come in, more Christian schools, more Catholic schools, more specialty schools. Like a specialty school is an aviation school that if you want to be a pilot or an A&P mechanic, you can start going to a special school in high school. And by the time you graduate, you're an A&P mechanic, and you can go to work at American Airlines or Tinker Air Force Base. And so we want more specialty schools that are aligned to the workforce. So we're really diving into that education system. And guess what? It's a free market principle. The government doesn't start these schools. It's people out there, churches, it's philanthropic, it's businesses saying, "Hey, this is the skill set we need for our workforce," and letting that free market work. And now they know every kid has up to $7,500 to go to that school, and that takes a lot of pressure off private fundraising or only going to get rich kids to go to their school. Now every kid can go. Yep. And that's what I'm so happy about. And man, the police officers, the firefighters, the teachers that come up to me that just go, "Governor, thank you. I work at the church," or "My husband's a police officer, and we didn't know how we were going to afford it, but we wanted our son to go to a Christian school or this specialty school, and you've made this possible." And it's probably one of my proudest moments as governor, is being able to get that across the finish line.
Yeah, I love it. And I always tell people, I was like, listen, school choice is not a panacea that's going to fix everything in education, but it starts to get the incentives in the right place where they have to, you understand this as a business person, where you have to start responding to the market and responding to parents and families, and make sure you're delivering what they need. And also understanding that every child is different. I have kids in different schools, one's in private, one's in public. And I'm glad you brought up charter schools. I always tell people, it's not an either or, it's a yes and we can do it all.
And Jeb Bush, he was governor of Florida 20 years ago and did a lot of school choice early on. And what he's been tutoring me on is in the Miami-Dade school district, the public schools are getting better. So what happened initially, kids left with a voucher or whatever they called it in their state. We have a refundable tax credit here, but they left and went to a charter school or specialty school. Now they're coming back because competition, everybody has to get better, and all boats are rising. Because if you're having to compete now for those students, you can't be rich, fat, and happy and not taking this for granted. You have to go make sure you're performing in the ACT scores, the graduation rates. Kids are getting great jobs. And that's good. right? We know that's good. We don't have government hospitals or government this or that. We have a free market system in Oklahoma, and education shouldn't be any different.
Yeah, amen. Well, appreciate all you're doing there. It helps us in Texas as we build the case for more educational opportunities. So thank you.
You need to tell your rural legislators, just get it across the finish line. It's not going to affect them. I heard that it's kind of a rural urban type of debate.
It is, and a lot of them have changed out over this last election cycle. So I think we're going to see some different dynamics, but it continues to be an issue. And what I've told rural superintendents of these ISDs is that, listen, think of all these workforce gaps we're seeing in these areas, even in the most rural areas. I go, this could really be helpful to think through some public-private partnerships that you could use these ESAs for to actually help your kids address the needs in your community. And that seems to really be hitting home for them. So
excellent.
Yeah.
And our rural school districts and superintendents, if they're doing a great job and they're active and they're teaching the kids, they're getting them ready for the workforce, they don't have any issues to worry about, right?
That's right.
But if they are failing, if you're in a failed school district and you're in a school district with low graduation rates, low ACT scores, an F-rated school, why wouldn't you want to give parents options? It just makes no sense to me that we want to lock them into a failed school district. And you can say, the argument on the other side is, well, you just got to pour more money into that. Maybe, but nobody has the guts to fire the superintendent or the principal. Mm-hmm. Let the people choose and move the kid if they're in a failing school district.
Yep.
And that'll create the pressure on that failing school district to reinvent themselves.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And even in the best schools, I always tell people, I was like, even in the best schools, there are kids failing in the best schools. And so it's about reaching the potential of every child. But you're 100% right. All right, moving on to even stickier issue, something that, obviously in Texas we deal with every day, and that's the border. Obviously, since President Biden has taken over, it has become a unmitigated disaster in Texas, and I would say every state is a border state. Obviously, you're not too far away. What kind of effects have you seen from that in Oklahoma, and what are the things that y'all are looking at doing to protect your state from the federal government abdicating its responsibility?
Yeah, that's something that Governor Abbott and I know Governor Abbott through the Republican Governors Association. Mm-hmm. Early on, I sent troops down to the southern border along with other Republican governors to support Governor Abbott. There's 28 ports of entry along that Texas-Mexico border, and it's already a federal law. It's illegal to cross anywhere but one of these ports of entry, right?
Yep.
And that's what makes no sense. And I wish every American could go down there and see what I saw. Because when you've got the federal government and borders being ordered to cut wire and create another port of entry, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. It makes no sense whatsoever. And we need to go back to the Trump era policies that remain in Mexico. And so, but every state, like you said, we've got fentanyl is up 500% fentanyl deaths in Oklahoma since I've taken office. We know those drugs are coming through the southern border. We know the people on the terrorist watch list. God forbid something else happens like 9/11. Yep. And those are things that really worry you from a law enforcement perspective. And my law enforcement that briefed me on the dangers of the southern border, the amount of Chinese nationals that are coming through the southern border, mm-hmm. all that stuff is very, very scary to think about. And it's all caused by, day one in office, the Biden-Harris administration change those laws. So don't let them fool you that they don't need they don't need some kind of bill to be passed. They literally need to go back and just day one, right now, they could do it. They could secure the border and it's nobody else is coming in and you're going to stay in Mexico until your court date, until you go through the visa process.
Yep. Yeah, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, right? And I think this country's had a long history of welcoming immigrants the right way, but when your overrun is going the wrong way, all you're doing is you're allowing people to be trafficked, and you're really just enriching cartels. And Mexico has unfortunately become nothing more than a failed narco state at this point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the thing that I try to make the point. Nobody is against legal immigration, right? With our employers and employee relationships, there's a process. The federal government has been failing at that process as well. And that needs to be fixed. We have we have education visas, and but we don't have the workforce visa fixed for people that are here legally chasing the American dream, paying taxes, part of our society.
Yeah. Relatedly, in Oklahoma, y'all had a task force that recently recommended that undocumented immigrants be given what's it called, driving privilege cards, and it's caused some concerns around the state. Now the legislature, yourself, y'all need to look at that. How do you see that playing out, and what do you think will happen based on that?
Well, that's a non-starter for me. We can't encourage. We can't encourage that. So that's a non-starter. We're not doing any kind of driver's license. I know a task force came out and recommended that as an option. So period, end of story. We're not doing that. Mm-hmm. What I am interested in is, for example, the federal government issues about 65,000, 66,000 visas, workforce visas a year. Well, the federal government, they screw everything up, right? And so I would like to see that at the state level. So whatever portion that gets for the state of Oklahoma, we want the state to handle that. Because I've got kids here at the University of Oklahoma in engineering from India or Europe, and they're here on an education visa, and then they want to stay and work at Boeing, and they can't get through the process at the federal government. So we want to match those employers with employee relationship here, and the state needs to control it, not the federal government. We need to know who's working in our state. We need to match those up. And so whatever portion we get, we want that done at the state level. So I am interested in trying to fix the immigration process on workforce visas.
Yeah, well, and looking at on the federal level, there's 180 something visas, and I know during the last Trump administration they were trying to get it down to 15 or 20 or so, and we incentivize people to go about it the wrong way because that is also not something that you can navigate easily. But first and foremost, we've got to stop people coming across illegally before you even start concerning yourself with that.
100%. 100%. The border has to be secure, and they can do that right now. And so they're just trying to spin the American people and saying, I don't even know how the conversation's changed recently, but it's like, Vice President Harris is all of a sudden not responsible for the border. And it's just, it's laughable because she was the border czar and they could fix it today. They don't have to wait till the election, the next election. She needs to own this. And unfortunately, the media is letting her off the hook. She owns this. They own these 12 million illegals coming through, and these are not, good workers. Like I said, there's Chinese nationals, there's terrorists, there's human trafficking, there's cartel enrichment, there's drugs coming through. And I'll tell you this, in a Republican Trump administration, day one, that border will be secure, and I don't think anything different is going to happen in a Harris administration.
Yeah, the fight will continue, and the states actually have to step up and advocate it. But I tell our legislators and Governor Abbott in Texas, I hope we're prepping that IOU to the federal government for all the money we've spent. So
I know, I know. Texas has the Texas citizens have had to pay. I don't know how much y'all have spent down there. Billions, right?
Spent, tens of billions of dollars, and I know it's affected Oklahoma a lot too. All right, so last two questions. So we've hit the hardcore policy. So I want to take a step back and talk about Oklahoma as a state. People coming to Oklahoma, what are the maybe top 2 or 3 things you say, hey, you got to do this when you come to Oklahoma? Because we understand this. I was actually born in Nebraska. It's flyover country. Most people don't think about it, but people are missing out on Oklahoma. And what are they missing out on?
Well, first off, Oklahoma City, the quality of life here is just amazing. So you have everything that you need. Oklahoma City is now the 20th largest city in the country. Most people don't realize that. Mm-hmm. We've got a professional sports team. Our commute time in Oklahoma is like 15 minutes.
I was very jealous this morning.
I know.
Man, it's amazing.
And versus Dallas is like 45 minutes or something.
Yeah.
So the quality of life is so much better. The cost of living, we have tons of people moving in from California. It's like 400% cheaper housing than California. So there's an arbitrage right now on workforce. So we have employers coming in here, and you can pay an engineer versus New York or other states so much more affordable. And so I think that's a huge deal. Tulsa, we just spent about $500 million on a park called the Gathering Place, and it was 2019, the USA Today, it was the best new attraction in the United States and the country. Oh. It's amazing. You got to go check that out.
The Gathering Place.
The Gathering Place in Tulsa. So Tulsa is about $1 million MSA. Oklahoma City is about $1.3 million. And then we've got all the rural land and the ranch land, and you can get outside, and people can live on 2 acres, 4 acres if you want to be outside. And yet we have the city as well. So just the quality of life's unbelievable here. And And but also you got to check out, kind of the ethos, the hardworking, cowboy lifestyle. So you can see buffalo in the northeast part of the state. So you got to go check out a rodeo if you're not from Oklahoma or Texas, and if you're from the East Coast, you've got to check that out. So yeah, just a lot of the hardworking ranching, farming. It's kind of the hardworkingness of the Oklahoma people. So it's an awesome state, and I'm just proud to be the governor.
I love it. I love it. All right. So last important question. Now, obviously, I'm sure you and Governor Abbott will have some sort of friendly wager on this, but in a few weeks, University of Oklahoma will play University of Texas in the Red River Shootout. What's going to happen?
Man, I'm Texas,
as an Aggie, I'm really agnostic.
Gig 'em, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Texas is looking pretty good.
They are.
They're looking pretty good.
I hate to admit that to my Longhorn friends, but they are looking pretty good.
Your Aggie buddies are going to disown you.
Yeah. But to cut that part.
But I'll tell you this, you kind of throw out the records at that Red River rivalry, and I went down there for the first time as a senior in high school, 1990, the football season of 1990. I've gone to several of them since then, and it's just awesome. I mean, you kind of throw the records and the seeding out the window, and those two teams, they get the best of each other every single year. And the last 5 games have been amazing. Triple overtime, double overtime, last second touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's not over until the fat lady sings in that game. But me and Abbott will have a bet going, and we always take a picture. I'll do this, and he'll do that before the game starts, and it's a lot of fun. The atmosphere down there at the Cotton Bowl is just unbelievable. So you got to come check that game out if you're a football fan at all.
Yeah, with the state fair and everything, and that half crimson, half burnt orange. It's quite the scene to check out. I'll admit that as an Aggie, it's quite the scene, and it's part of a great heritage of both our states.
Are the Aggies in Texas playing this year?
They are. I already have a friendly wager with Governor Abbott on it, so I might, if we lose, I might be wearing some burnt orange later this year. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully I get him in maroon.
Is Ewers coming back, or is he hurt bad, or is Arch?
No, I think he'll be back at some point, but I don't know. He might be like a Lou Gehrig, right? Like he might have got Wally pipped, and now Arch will be it for now. I don't know. He looked pretty good this weekend, so yeah. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. Well, Governor Stitt, thank you for joining us. Thank you for having us here at the beautiful Capitol here in Oklahoma City. Thank you for all you're doing for the great state of Oklahoma. It's really been a pleasure spending time with you. And it helps, the stuff you're doing. I always tell people, it helps. The competition between the states really, really helps. And so very appreciative of everything that y'all are doing up here in Oklahoma.
Wonderful. Remember, Oklahoma's a step above Texas.
Fair enough. We won't edit that part out. We'll keep that in. We'll use it as a promo.
I just made all the Texans mad.
That's right. Thank each and every one of you for joining us on this episode of The Arena. We look forward to seeing you at the next episode.